Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. So tonight, I want to talk about something to do with our tradition that's very fundamental, and also something that people often have questions about. So this is a tradition called Trika Shaivism from North India, and one of the ways that we talk about why we're even bothering to do this is so that we can realize what the actual nature of ourselves is and what the nature of reality is. And what happens when you get in direct contact with that is you discover that everything is made of wisdom. Everything is made of one pervasive wisdom, one pervasive awareness. You discover that directly for yourself. So this past week I was reading an article by an academic in a political science department at the University of California in Santa Barbara. And she was born in India, but now she teaches here. And she is trying to write about and talk about, can tantric traditions be used to formulate some kind of radical politics? Her understanding of the tantric traditions from India is rudimentary, not academically, but because just judging by what she talks about and writes about, she doesn't have enough realization practicing in the tradition to understand what really happens when you do practices for a long period of time. So, particularly, she was doing an interview that I listened to, and the interviewer said, so if everything is made of the same wisdom or the same consciousness and energy, there's just one consciousness everywhere, and there's no other, there's not really any other person. Every one of us is just a playful expression of that one consciousness. Then wouldn't a politics based on this sort of be uncompassionate, or wouldn't there be a I don't give a fuck attitude? Because if you're the same consciousness as me, and you are, and you are, and you are, and each one of you is just some sort of appearing of that one supreme person, and there really isn't anyone to harm, and there really isn't any suffering because it's all just a play of that one thing, then why bother being good? Why bother being compassionate? And that is a question that I think almost every beginning student asks. And not even just beginning students, but students who have come from a tradition where the teaching is quite different. For instance, where we are told to cultivate compassion and follow rules about being good and treating other people well. So her answer was an answer that someone would give who doesn't really do the practice or hasn't done it at least for a long time. And she said, well, of course that is one option. You could just kind of think to yourself, well, everything's just made of this one consciousness and energy, so I'm not going to bother being nice to anybody, I'm just going to do what I want. Or you could decide that you wanted to use your insight in order to do good in the world. So this is a very rationalistic way of thinking about that question of why would we bother being good or why would we bother being compassionate. The reason it's rationalistic or dualistic, as some of you might be more familiar with who've been around for a while, is because it's based on this idea that we need some circumstance to trigger or be the reason why we're being good or why we're being compassionate. So for instance, Banu, if I see Banu stubbed his toe, I'm going to be compassionate because he stubbed his toe. But if you lie to me, then I'm not going to be compassionate to you because you lied to me. So this is still in the realm of I'm going to make all these decisions about who to be compassionate to and who not to be, and P.S., you have to deserve my compassion. Right? If that's the way things were, if that's what self-realization looked like, I would be out of here so fast I'd be a blur going out the door. To still be in the condition where you are deciding who's worthy and who's not, or still trying to figure out how to be nice, I mean, that's just the condition we're all in normally. So why do any spiritual practice to achieve that? We've already achieved that. That's called suffering. So there are two people who are important in this tradition, one of whom, Abhinavagupta, lived at the cusp of the 10th and the 11th century in Kashmir, where this tradition is from, and one of his forebears, Utpaladeva. And what they said was that when you are full, when you feel complete, when there is nothing left to desire for yourself, the only thing you can do is give to other people. So what they're saying is that self-realization is a condition of realizing your fullness, realizing that you are full of wisdom, full of compassion, full of intelligence, full of joy. And when you feel full to that degree, you just cannot help but be giving and compassionate towards others. There's nothing to do with yourself. There's nothing left to get. There's nothing left to strive for. And so what do you do with all this fullness? You let it overflow to others. And this just happens automatically. It's not because of anything. It's because of your fullness that this happens. Right now, most of you, if not every single one of you, including me, experiences some kind of feeling of lack, or some feeling that you have a problem, or some feeling that you need to fix something, or some feeling that you could be better than you are right now. I mean, if you didn't feel that, we would all call it a day and, go out and do something else. But what the practice shows us, and by practice I mean things like meditation and mantra and so forth, if we do those over a long number of years, what we discover is that we are not lacking, that we don't have problems, that there isn't anything wrong with us, and that we are full of perfection, we are full of virtue and wisdom, we are goodness without an opposite. So once you discover that, there's nothing else to do but give it away, because you no longer need anything. So you become like a fountain overflowing with those wisdom virtues. And that is actually the origin of compassion, not any circumstance that requires our compassion. Simply being full and needing to give it away. So Utpaladeva wrote about this in one of his major texts, and Abhinavagupta later commented on it. Said that men, all those who are tormented with endless births and deaths, must be helped because they are an object of compassion. It's the reverse of what we would normally think. People must be helped because they are objects of compassion, not that they are objects of compassion because they need help. Normally I say, oh, you need help, let me be compassionate toward you. But what Abhinavagupta and Utpaladeva are saying, no, they are already objects of compassion. They must be helped because they are objects of compassion, not because they are suffering. Do you understand? And so some of you are completely new, and many of you are relatively new. So normally we say, I must feel compassionate toward you because you need help, or you're suffering. So I'm going to try to feel compassionate toward you because you're suffering. And what Utpaladeva and Abhinavagupta are saying is that you must be helped, not because you're suffering, but because you're an object of compassion. You must be helped because God feels compassionate toward you, not because you're suffering. You are already always an object of compassion. And it isn't the suffering that's triggering it.
Is it like to say that we are made to receive?
Yes. But more that awakened reality is meant to give.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There isn't really any connection between your suffering and its giving. It just has to give to you. You are its object of compassion, regardless of anything else. Triggered by nothing, just happening continuously. Compassion is prior to any circumstances, what this is saying. Compassion is happening before there is any circumstance to provoke compassion. And it's happening everywhere all the time. That is the state of awakened consciousness, is to be always overflowing with compassion, regardless of anything. There's this unstoppable overflow of expression. Because my experience is that compassion is just coming out of everything. So this is very different from other kinds of traditions where, first of all, you're taught that compassion is coming from you. And it's not just coming out of the air, it's coming from you, from each individual. And that you have to be compassionate and you have to cultivate compassion. It's a very individualized, dualistic way of talking about compassion. From the perspective of this tradition, the only thing that you can do is remove obscurations to that universal compassion being expressed through you. And that will, at some point, completely overtake you in spite of yourself and will demand expression, not that you will try to cultivate it. Right? So this is a really different kind of a perspective, and everybody always wants to know about that because it seems a little scary or weird or wrong to say that we shouldn't try to be compassionate. What we should try to do from the perspective of this tradition is remove the obscurations from our heart. Remove our tensions so that already innate, already perfected compassion can pour out unimpeded. So we put our effort in a little different place. We have some basic precepts that we follow just so we don't get into too much trouble. But in general, we are putting most of our effort into opening our hearts and removing obscurations from our physical, subtle, and wisdom body so that we can just be that natural expression of compassion, one that needs no cultivation, that has no restrictions or restraints. This is how reality has been described by the founders of this tradition. That there's an unimpeded overflowing, and that's where the creation comes from. And we, in our small way, embody that when we become more awake. As above, so below. We are aspects of that, and so we can express that in our own way. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.